Okay, so welcome to episode 3 of the Steed podcast. I'm joined today by Seb Kemp. Seb is the brand manager of Santa Cruz Bikes and the trail director for Walker. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Why don't you just introduce yourself real quick?
Oh, crikey. Yeah. My name is Seb. I'm 40 years old this year, which is quite the chapter. I didn't really ever thought I'd say that. But anyway, I work for Santa Cruz Bicycles, as you said. I also do a lot of trail work, including working on the board of Walker, Whistler Off-Road Cycling Association. And I am a self-confessed bike dog.
Yeah, you both.
Yeah.
So one thing that I wanted to ask you first, maybe get asked this a bit. Where are you from? I cannot place your accent.
Yeah. I've got the worst accent in the world because I've moved around a lot as a kid and as an adult. And so I'm from the UK, moved around a lot in the UK. Like my parents would relocate like every 3 to 5 years. So, in the UK, accents change if you drive 50 kilometers. So yeah, it's a bit messy there. And then I spent most of my adult life traveling around and spent a lot of time in New Zealand, the last 16 years here in Canada. And where I live in Canada, it's full of Australians. So I pick up the twang of that. So it's a hideous accent. Oh, and then I work for an American company. So
yeah,
work with all y'all.
I thought I could hear like a bit of South London and a bit of kind of Kiwi Aussie in there.
Exactly. I was born in Surrey, and then I spent a lot of before I moved overseas, I was in Somerset. So like when you get that twang, like things get real weird, don't they? So whereabouts yourself from, Sam?
I'm from Nottingham.
Okay.
But I've moved around a lot like you. I spent a couple of years in Australia and New Zealand and now Canada. So my accent's pretty messed up. Oh, and I spent like 7 years in North Wales, and that'll do weird things to your accent as well.
Could do weird things to a lot of your things, I think.
Yeah, it's a strange place, but I liked it. So you've had like a pretty long career in the bike industry, as far as I understand. Where did you get started?
Goodness, yeah. Depends how far we go back, really. Because I know it was 1994 is when I started riding bikes, and pretty much straight away got a Saturday job at a bike shop because I was like, this is my thing. Like bikes is the thing. So as soon as I could, I started working at my local bike shop on Saturdays. I mean, looking back, I don't remember doing any work. Saturdays was just a reason to go and hang out with other bike dorks, mechanics, and the salespeople, and just like talk bikes, talk to customers about bikes, and then eat jacket potatoes at lunch. That's all I remember about it, really. I don't know how effective I was doing anything, but so that was the first thing. And then yeah, I've had quite a diverse range of different stuff. I was a mountain bike heli guide in New Zealand for a bit. Of like guided mountain biking across the world. I don't remember how many countries, but a lot of that. Done coaching as well up here in Whistler and some other places in the world. I've done. I was a freelance journalist. I'm not sure if journalist is the right word. I was paid small amounts of money to write silly things on magazines or the internet for quite some time, like nearly 10 years. I had a column for Dirt magazine for most of that time. Starting back, I think it was in like 2008. I think it is. We started it. And what else have I done? Oh, and then started making videos and other stuff freelance. Like anything I could do to just be around bikes and biking people, I would just do. And because of that, bikes was an amazing opportunity to learn like a diverse range of skills that I probably wouldn't have been exposed to. So
I'm a massive bike nerd as well, and just working in the bike industry is awesome. You just get to talk bikes all day. That's all I want to do.
I know it's my wife. She asked me to switch it off sometimes because, and I kind of look at her and I said, do we have to talk about life and real things? I like it when bikes are like the reason to talk about life stuff, you know. They can be the window to get into life stuff, but I like it when there's a bike shaped lens to think about life. So
I mean, bikes pretty much shaped my entire adult life, you know. Bikes are the reason that I went to the university that I did, and bikes are the reason that I ended up in New Zealand and Canada and doing what I'm doing. So, you know, bikes are important.
Oh, they're fantastic. Whether they're moving you from your backyard to your back roads nearby your home, or if they can transport you all around the world, or like into really, you know, to figure some stuff out about yourself. You know, I do think they're a very good machine for mental health, but I also think they're just a fantastic opportunity to, like I said, find out other things about life and meet some incredible people. So
yeah, I wouldn't be where I am without them. So how did you go from like journalism to what you're doing now with Santa Cruz?
Yeah, I never really wanted a job in the quote unquote industry, working for a company. It wasn't really an intention, but I was actually covering the Bronson 2 product launch down in California from B. At the time, I was building nearly full time as well. But NSMB asked me to kind of do this gig and just go down to California. And I really like resisted going at first because it was getting into September. We had a lot of work to still finish the trail we're working on. We were actually working on the Lord of the Squirrels Trail at the time. And we were kind of flat out trying to race the winter. Like we were like, we've got to do it. And I was like, I don't want to waste 5 days going to California, which is the bizarrest concept looking back on it, but didn't really want to do it at the time. But I went down anyway to the press camp, and and I'd known people at Santa Cruz. I know Santa Cruz, the brand, for quite some time anyway. So it was like hanging out with good people that I knew. And I was hanging out with Will Ockleton, who's the marketing director. And we were just chatting about business and what he was up to. And we just kind of, he remarked that Canada was an area that they needed to focus on a little bit more. And I said, I kind of threw it out there. I was like, if you ever need any help, give us a shout. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah, I'd love to, help you guys out with Canada. It's two of the things I like. And then from that, like a month or so later, we finished up the trail build season. And then I started working for Santa Cruz as their BC Canada brand rep. Which is a bit different than the sales rep. And it was kind of a job that we were prototyping at the time. And and it went from there really. So
that's cool. So you've been around Santa Cruz for a while, right? You were riding them before you started working for them, or?
Yeah, I've always had an interesting relationship with Santa Cruz. Back in 2009, I was helping the Bike magazine with their very first Bible of Bike tests up here in Whistler. That was a month of chaos. And at the time I was working for a guiding company up here who were hosting them. And myself and a couple of other Irish lads and the Brits that were running that organization, we were helping Bike magazine out. I tried the Tallboy out because we had like that first year of the Bike magazine Bible, there was something like 34 bikes in a double car garage, and we just jammed them in. And it was absolute chaos, and it was the worst weather. But we were trying all these different bikes out, and it was a great opportunity. And I tried the Tallboy out, and I just fell in love. I fell in love with that bike. And this was like 2009 was like, no one was really thinking about 29ers, like especially up around this end of the woods. And I was like, this is the thing. And I was about to travel off to Mexico to go and build trails for 3 months over the winter. And I was like, needed a bike. And I actually contacted the marketing director at the time, Mike Ferrantino, also from Bike Magazine, and asked him whether, he'd be interested in kind of loaning me that bike for a little while. And he did. And so we went to Mexico. I went to Mexico, built trails. videos because we went completely stir crazy in Mexico because there was nothing to do apart from dig dirt for 10 hours a day and then just stare at the horizon because we were honestly, I've never been anywhere so remote in my life. It was fantastic. So we just went stir crazy, made some videos, people liked them, and then I went to Santa Cruz after that, met Mike, which is a bit of an all-time hero. Anyone knows Mike Ferrantino is a legend in so many ways, like what he writes, how he writes, his work in the industry, and just as a human being, is probably the smartest person I've ever met. And so I hung out with him and then started riding some other bikes for them, but never really rode for them. I just kind of help out with some photo shoots, some video shoots, and I still tried to remain as objective as I could as a journalist, because I was still kind of a few years later I started really transitioning into doing more bike reviews and stuff, and that's when I did less stuff for Santa Cruz and kind of separated that just to remain that objectivity. But things come full circle, and now I'm in the position that Mike was 10 years ago. Bizarre.
Yeah, it's funny how things work out.
Yeah.
I remember the video that you made a few years back. I remember it for two reasons, because it's pretty funny, and also the bike that's in that video is shit mountain bikers say.
Oh yeah,
such a good video. I
Yeah.
still watch that now.
Matt Dennison needs to take most of the credit for that. Matt Dennison is another Vancouver local genius on the video, and a very funny kid, actually. I mean, he's not a kid now, he's an adult. And he should take most of the credit for that. He was feeding me lines and put the whole thing together. We did that in like a morning, I think it was.
Oh yeah.
Shooting on a snowy day on the North Shore, and it was right at that time when that whole concept of, insert here what they say was a big thing, and it was just really well timed that we did what mountain bikers say. So
yeah, that was a cool video. I remember getting there actually, and riding Lower Griffin, and then seeing the sign for Imminator and being like, oh, that was the way that was filmed. That's cool.
Is that a bomber? Whoa.
Good times. I really like the bike that was in that video as well. It was the Butcher, was it?
Yeah, the green Butcher. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. They stopped making that after like 2 years, I think. That and the Nickel were like the only link-driven single pivot bikes they ever made, right?
Actual pivot points, APPs.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, single pivot with a linkage. I really enjoyed that bike. I enjoyed that bike for two reasons. One, like I traveled like an enormous, that was like 2012, I think it was, 11, 12. And I did an enormous amount of traveling that year, and that bike went with me everywhere. Like there was like a period of 18 months, 2 years or so where I didn't even pay rent anywhere. So I had nowhere to send post. I was literally traveling from one trip or thing to the next and just living literally out of my bike bag and a rucksack. And that bike was there the whole way. And it was bomb proof. I chucked it around. I really liked how it rode. Like 150 mils is a really sweet spot for an all-round bike that you could just put in a bag and turn up anywhere. Despite everyone, I think people like to criticize certain things about the kinematics of anything, but people didn't really gel with the APP. I thought it was great. I really liked the feel of the chassis as well. Like it had, I'm sure this isn't a great thing, but it actually had this really nice kind of like slight twist to it. So you could actually like, not in a negative way, but I sometimes think like for a bike like that didn't have the most sophisticated suspension, having a little bit of like twist in the chassis actually like allowed it to really like turn really well. Like you could really lean it on its side. And rather than getting like, if it was too stiff, it would kind of get bucked around because the suspension's not able to work so well. There actually kind of like was very compliant.
Okay, that's a nice way. Nice. Why did they stop making that one?
not that many people were that interested. I think at the time it was either like, because it was trying to fit two worlds between a single pivot and the VPP. And at the time, no one really was that interested in that kind of thing and that price point of bike. It was either like full single pivot or full VPP. And then not long after that, like even the single pivots went, because it's what people were buying. They just wanted the full benefits of the VPP, which is a far more sophisticated suspension design.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it, but I do kind of miss the old Heckler. The single pivot, aluminum frame, like nothing really to go wrong. But I'm English. I like orange and steel hardtails as well. So
yeah, it was great for that time, but I think things have moved on now. I think it's time for, it's good to have all of the options and the bells and the whistles we have.
Yeah, I mean, Santa Cruz has a certain brand image now, anyway. So it's a bit like Land Rover. They don't make the old Defender anymore.
Have you seen? So okay, we'll get off topic. What do you think of the latest Land Rover?
I mean, it's just not a Land Rover anymore, is it?
Really?
I mean,
I'm really curious to see. I want to see one in the flesh, and I really want to drive one. But I've been so impressed to see the reviews that have come out, because now there's a lot of more like ride impressions coming out. It's not just here's a spy shot and here's the artist renderings and here's the press pack. It's like journalists, real reviewers are getting out and driving out. And I've heard some amazing reviews come back. Like people are like, this is actually, honest to God, like an incredible off-roading vehicle. And, sure, it's not as simple as a tractor used to be, but it's actually like world beating still in just a totally different way. So I'm really, really interested in terms of how it looks.
They look pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, the thing with Land Rover, right, is that they, like with the Range Rover, that it's like a footballer's car, but still super capable off-road. And I guess the Defender is going to be the same with that. I guess I just don't like the brand image anymore.
Yeah, I think, but that's the thing. We can't hold on to things. Things have to evolve and change. Like,
it's true.
It was incredible that vehicle was able to stay in production for as long as it could. But there just came a point where, I think it was the world around the Land Rover changed so much, regulations, safety, emissions, everything else, that it just had to change. And that's the tricky thing is, we want some things to stay the same, but at the same time, we want everything from the future now. So
in fairness, I only drove one of those old Defenders once. It was a friend's, I think it was a 97, and it was awful.
There you are, see?
Yeah, it was horrible to drive. Like the gearbox just felt like it was a bowl of porridge,
I wonder if that's how you feel if you had to go back and ride an original Heckler today, on the trails you ride today, in the way you ride today.
I actually rode one a few weeks ago.
Really?
I rode one around the car park at work, because I'm a mechanic as well. So I get to, I work on all these bikes and then take them out for a spin. And it was eye-opening.
Which vintage? What year was it?
I think it was one of the, I think it was a Mark II. No, not a Mark II. What was the one where the frame was like a bit more swoopy? It looked like the 27, but it was still the 26.
Oh, I'd have to look it up.
It was like a 2006, maybe, something like that.
Oh, so yeah, not too old. Cool.
Not too old, but it felt, old.
Still disc brakes on 26-inch wheels.
Still disc brakes.
Different geometry,
Just like long stem, steep head angle, suspension that felt quite weird. Probably needed a service.
I love the retro bike thing. I've got some friends in Queenstown that love the vintage downhill bikes. And try and collect them all. And I think it's fantastic. But I think there's a balance between the fawning over the things of the past and then like trying to put them into the reality of what we do today or our future.
Yeah, there's like I definitely have fond memories of a lot of older bikes, and it's as much as I'd like to own a lot of them still because they look cool. I'm never going to ride them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I saw an old. I'm on a Facebook group, vintage downhill bike traders.
Oh, and then you've probably seen my friend Paul Angus snooping around there, and Cy Miller. They are complete massive fans of that Facebook group. They tell me about it all the time. Yeah.
I love it. There was an Intense M1 that turned up on there a few days ago, and it had, I think the guy said 10 kilometers on it from new, and it looked pristine. I was like, that's amazing, but it probably rides terribly.
Wow. But there's so many questions I want to ask that person, like why they only rode it for 10 kilometers. Like,
yeah,
you know, I think bicycles, I think you've got to use and abuse.
mm-hmm.
That's incredible. I just want to find out, like, why did he suddenly did he buy it as speculation for 20 years later, or did he never actually enjoy riding bikes that much? It was about the object.
There are plenty of people out there that buy like super expensive bikes and never ride them. You know, people with too much money and not enough time.
Wow. Yeah, not enough time. That could be that thing. Maybe life got in the way. So, what do you ride? What do you ride these days?
I'm on a Specialized Stumpy Evo 27,
mm-hmm.
which is an interesting bike.
Yeah. Why did you go 27 rather than the full 29?
Well, here's a topic that I was going to ask you about. I can't bring myself to get on with 29ers that much. I struggle with them a little bit. I really like 27 and a half. It's just like what I like to ride.
Mm-hmm.
And I've ridden the Tall Boy, I've ridden the High Tower, I've ridden the Mega Tower, I've ridden like Trek Slashes, I've ridden a bunch of Specialized, and like, I don't know, I just like the smaller wheels.
That's great. It's good that there's options there, hey?
Yeah.
It's good that there's options. I mean, I think there is we were just talking about the Tall Boy in 2009. You know, that wasn't the first 29er, but it was one of the first 29ers that worked. And people were very resistant at the time because they thought it was going to change things. Fast forward like another 6-7 years, and you know, other 29ers in the downhill world start popping up, and people get very resistant to them again. But it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think what we're seeing right now is that it's every wheel size has its strengths and its weaknesses or its benefits, and really it just comes back to matching the rider with the right bike anyway.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Because there's advantages to each one's, but you just got to kind of fit yourself. Otherwise, you might have fun trying to beat the clock. Other people don't have fun doing that. I don't. So
yeah, I'm not a racer at all. I've tried it. I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go fast, but I like to have fun too. So
the 27.5 is a good size. It's like the fun size, wheel size. You can still, you're not looking at eking out tenths of a second off a Strava segment. Instead, it's how the bike makes you feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
I feel like with 27, you get that feeling of speed, even though you're not necessarily going that fast. And it's the feeling of speed that's fun, right? It's not the tenth of a second off Strava.
Mm-hmm.
Although that's nice too.
I've heard that there's some very competitive Strava segments going down in Steed right now between members of staff.
Oh yeah, I've got no chance.
Yeah,
you know, there are some fast times laid down in the North Shore. I'm not going to beat any of them.
Yeah, so go and enjoy the ride then.
Yeah, exactly. I just like to beat myself.
That's good. Yeah, I feel the same. I like to switch my wheels, not switch my wheels on my bike, but having access to a number of different bikes means that I get to kind of pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
And I was I'm like a bit of a brag. I was pretty early to the 29er game for a lot of people, but since then I rode a lot of 27.5, and I still do actually. Like my main bike at the moment is 27.5, and I love it.
So you don't lean one way or the other?
No, like I like picking and choosing depending on the bike, on where I'm riding, who I'm riding with.
Mm-hmm.
Out for all out speed. And I think if I was purely racing, then I'd probably pick 29. But I like having fun as well. I like feeling fun.
One bike that I do like a lot actually is the new tall boy.
Cut out for a minute there.
Oh, you back?
Oh yeah, I think internet's unstable.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's mine or yours.
Nah.
Oh well.
It's everybody downloading everything off Netflix at the moment. There must be something new happening somewhere. So actually, it's 10:30. What are they doing? I should be at work.
But yeah, I like the new tall boy a lot. That's a fun bike. Like I'm not always a 29er fan, but I feel like the short travel, like slack head angle, big wheels combo is pretty fun.
Yeah, I love. I mean, this is the thing about bikes. Like, I love nerding out on them because they change. They're always just like tweaking a little bit, like little minute differences in everything, and it can really change like the feel of the bike. And when it comes down to it, like, it can change the feel of your ride as well. You know, it just you can tailor it. So
yeah, I tried to do like 2 identical rides, Bronson versus Hightower, in the last couple of days, and they're pretty different bikes. Like, it's amazing how much, like, you know, wheel size changes that. I definitely had a lot more fun on the Bronson, but you know, that's just me because I like small wheels.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy how small things can affect your ride. But then I was like, is it even fair to go, you know, 2 different days and compare 2 different bikes? The conditions are similar, but it's like, what if my tire pressures were like, you know, a PSI off? That could make a big difference too.
The science of testing bikes. It's like, it's funny. I was talking to someone about this last week, and we were talking about you know, car testers again. And how they have to test cars. And it's a very different thing because the human being in charge of a vehicle is a very different input than a human being on a bicycle. As a human being on top of the bicycle with your weight placement and everything else, it's how you dynamically ride can really affect the bike. So it's, you know, it would be fantastic if we could all ride like robots and hit exactly the same line every single time. But when it's when you put a human on there, we're all infallible and we kind of bounce around and maybe don't quite line things up so perfectly. So
yeah, you ride it different every time, right?
Yeah, which is why, you know, like feeling, you know, you can ride to test to time or you can ride to test to feel. And sometimes, like in that in the latter there, you know, you can have human biases in there, and that doesn't matter, because if one bike just makes you feel better, that's the bike for you.
And sometimes it's really hard to put words to that, you know. I've been dabbling with a bit of journalism, as you say in air quotes there, and sometimes it can be really hard to put on paper like exactly what you're feeling and experiencing about a bike or a component or whatever. And you just kind of have to do your best.
And how's that going, that experimentation?
I like it. I do a bit of writing for single tracks, and it's pretty fun. It's nice to do something a bit different, and try to be objective about things and try not to lean one more or the other, like you said.
But you've got to insert that thing, like the icky, messy, subjective bit that is all from your like learned experiences that creates biases within you. You've still got to embrace that and put it into it. So
yeah, it's really hard. Sometimes I'll sit down and write something and be like, is what I'm saying fair? Is it biased? Am I right? Am I wrong? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I guess that's all you can do is just try to put down what you're thinking.
Yeah, you've got to entertain and inform equally. So
yeah, and you've got to have thick skin too, I've learned.
Oh goodness.
Try not to read the Facebook comments.
Try not to read Facebook at all.
Yeah. It's true. I have some other things. I have a lot of opinions on bike related things, and I feel like you probably do too. So like bike design, what do you reckon to this longer, lower, slacker trend? Do you have any opinions on that?
I don't believe there is one single universal absolute right geometry or bike for anyone or anywhere or any time. I think having variety in there is really important. I've tried some really long slack bikes and fantastic in certain parts of the trail, in certain places, in certain parts of the world for certain riders. But I wouldn't say it's always going to be ideal for everyone. And so that's why like there isn't one bike, and that's why like there is not one geo number that you can follow and be like, this is my God, this is my North Star. And the same thing, you know, and there has to be many different types of bikes, and they might all kind of look alike, but actually it's that like 0.5 here or 2 millimeters here or this and this, all of that adding up that really makes bikes feel very, very different. And two bikes that look similar on paper can actually be like wildly different. And you really got to like pick the right bike for you, where you ride, how you ride, and what you aspire to ride like as well. So
yeah, that's kind of why
I think it's been good that things have got longer and slacker for sure. And I think it's right, but I don't think we should all be on 550 mil reach, 62 degree head angle with, you know, boat anchor rear stays, because I don't think we would all like that. And
yeah,
it goes back to personal preference in the end. So
that's kind of why I'm on that Stumpy Evo right now. I just kind of wanted to try something slightly out there geometry and see what that's like, because that's like a 63 degree head angle trail bike with like, I can't remember what the number is, but the bottom bracket's something like 20 mil lower than a Nomad, and it's like it's super long, low, and slack.
How's it riding? How's your experimentation on the North Shore with that bike?
It's interesting. As you probably know, the North Shore is quite a hard place to actually set a bike up for, because you've got difficult climbs, you know, like techie steep climbs, and then you've got really tight, janky, steep technical trails, but then you've also got some that are pretty flat out and fast. So you want something that's like long and stable, but not so long that you can't like get it around the tightest, stupidest corner in the world. So it's a fun bike. I don't know if I'd necessarily want to ride it always, but yeah, it's interesting.
And here lies it, why there's a million bikes, and why your next bike is always going to be the best bike, because we're just always just trying to refine and find that sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly. There's almost a little too much choice.
Yeah.
I do find that one thing that bugs me a little bit about the bike industry is in a lot of the media, and I can think of one media outlet in particular, everything is kind of oriented towards the downhill. Like, you know, this will make you faster on the descents, so that makes it the best. And while that's good, I feel like, you know, we're not all racers. You know, 70% of our riding is uphill too. And so that kind of, you know, more normal people want a more normal bike in a lot of cases, I feel like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So you kind of say that like the views and opinions of a certain subsect of people, because they have a lot of clout and influence, can influence a lot of people in perhaps perceiving what they need on their bike as not being entirely accurate for their reality. Yeah. And that is why I don't know, and that is why there needs to be lots of different bikes, and there needs to be ways of communicating that it's not this absolutist idea of this is the ultimate bike because of this, and I say so, because what works on the North Shore might not even work as well in Pemberton. And Pemberton is what, an hour and a half drive away from the North Shore. The trails are radically different. And there's going to be something that's going to be a bit more optimal for there. as opposed to the North Shore. And that's where you have to be a discerning reader of the media and a discerning reader of the marketing to kind of really like refine what it is that you as an individual are looking for. So
it can be kind of hard to do that, I feel like sometimes, but maybe even more now than ever, because you know, when I grew up riding, you know, we had publications that were, you know, pretty well based in one area. So like say MBUK and Dirt magazine, I think they were both based in Bath.
Yeah, Dirt was based in South Wales and Monmouth, and MBUK was in Bath. Yeah, and yeah.
Before the internet, I guess, like, you know, your readership of that magazine, they were kind of reading about bikes that'd be great in their area, and now you can read about any bike anywhere in the world, and so, you know, I feel like it's easier to read about a bike that works well for you. Maybe back in the day when those testers were riding the same trails.
Do you know what? I see your point. I actually disagree, because I blame Dirt magazine, even though I love that magazine. The magazine, not the website. I love the magazine so much, and everyone behind it and what it meant and the years I got to work for him. But I single-handedly blame Steve Jones and Mike Rose for getting me off my my capable all-round mountain bike and getting me into long baggy motocross pants and full face helmets and downhill bikes. Because being a teenager growing up in the UK without a driving license and without mountains and without the access to amazing trails that a lot of people have now, because there's far more trail opportunities than there was in the 90s, meant I actually started riding less and less, because I was reading these magazines and was like thinking, downhill's so cool. That's the only way to do it. Downhill's so cool. And I got rid of I went from a hardtail into full suspension, but full suspension was like predominantly downhill. And I suddenly had this bike that I couldn't pedal up anywhere to go and ride the 30-second descents in the local woodland. And I didn't have friends to drive to trail centers, which barely existed at that time. We didn't have shuttle up lifts and stuff. So I ended up just riding less and less and less and less. And that's when I kind of dropped out of mountain biking for a bit and picked up a BMX and just rode that for nearly, for a long time, because that was actually, a BMX was a more versatile tool to an English youngster than a downhill bike. So yeah, so the mountain bike media, I got swayed too much by it and picked the wrong bike, because I was imagining and aspiring to a vision of what I wanted my mountain to be that didn't actually fit with my reality of my surroundings or my situation. So that was my learning experience. Now on, I pick the bikes I want to ride, because my experience and situation is very different. So
yeah, I did something similar when I was in university. I was about 21, maybe not even that old, maybe 20, and reading Dirt magazine a bit more, and thought I need to get a downhill bike, and ended up riding an orange 223 about like 10 miles to the nearest downhill tracks.
Oof.
Yeah,
but we would do it because we were silly and rubber boned. Yeah,
didn't have a car, so you know what else am I going to do?
But now, I mean, I hate to sound like one of those people, like, you know, but it is fantastic what we have now. Like, we have bikes that can actually propel you that 10 road miles quite effectively and still perform probably better than any of those downhill bikes ever did. So
I would
fortunate.
Say orange 223 with crazy long chainstays and a crazy short reach. That was it.
And the down tube, that big hollow folded aluminum down tube, the cables rattling against it and the rocks hitting off it sounded like, you know, a toolbox being thrown out of a helicopter. Like,
yeah. I love that bike. It was great.
Oh, they're fantastic. A legendary bike. But I'm glad we don't have to ride them now.
Yeah, I mean, some people still do, but good for them.
Yeah.
So you spend a lot of time trail building now then, I guess. Do you live up in Whistler?
I do. I live in Whistler, yeah. And always trail building because, like I said, BMXing from a young age, there's a yeah, I believe that, especially jumping, trail riding, riding trails, it's like no dig, no ride. And so I was raised by a bunch of BMXers really who were, who instilled that ethos in me really firmly.
Mm-hmm.
And so with mountain biking, it just kind of overlapped. And I don't get to build as many trails as I would like to because of time, but there's this misconception that trail building means creating a new trail. It can just be going and doing maintenance. And I love spending time in the woods on trails, whether it's raking, whether it's cutting in a brand new line, whether it's building rock armor. Sometimes I enjoy building wooden bridges if I have to, but they are one of the such a labor-intensive pain in the neck, and then they rot and go away in 10 years. So anyway, but yeah, I love it. I love being out in the forest. I love that creative outlet that working on trails is, and it is an extension of mountain biking. I find that there's no separation between the experience of mountain biking as the act of bicycling through the universe, or the act of working on trails for the benefits of recreation. Like, to me, it's like exactly the same thing. Like, I consider even my time when I go out and work on trails as time mountain biking. It's like the same thing. So I love it.
Yeah, I used to dig a lot back when I lived in Wales. Not so much these days. I'm a little busier, so it's kind of hard to get out there. But yeah, I find that a lot of the places I lived in the last few years have been a little bit more sensitive to trail building as well. So it can be kind of hard to get out there.
But there's trail maintenance. I mean, North Shore, NSMB, shout out to Cooper. Actually, can we just shout out Cooper? That would be more interesting, actually. Cooper, if you are listening to this, I'm shouting at you. Anyway, yeah, shout out to people like NSMBA, who are doing amazing work on reviving and upholding and managing and maintaining a trail network. And they've really gone to prove that you don't need to be building new trails to be trail building. And that's one thing I think, like I just touched on, is everyone thinks that trail building means like, I've got to go and put my mark on the forest and make a new line, when really, like, trail maintenance is the true like hero's work, I think. And the people that go and do that, especially on the North Shore, deserve a lot of props. There's incredibly skilled trail builders who are doing trail maintenance, and people incredibly invested into the act of mountain biking that spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, thousands of their hours doing that, so we can all go thundering through on a super long slack 27 bikes.
Yeah, there's been a lot of maintenance here on the North Shore recently, which is great. Yeah, obviously we're struggling to.
You guys at Steed, you do you're part of the TAP project, Trail Adoption Program.
Yeah, so we sponsor Pennzoil. Yeah, we were meant to have a few trail days recently, but obviously haven't been able to do that. So yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed we all get to hanging out a little bit in the woods doing that. We've got that at the moment up here in Walker. Like I said, I'm the trails director at Walker, and volunteer trail work accounts for an enormous amount of the resource we put into the network. Not being able to hold our trail days is really kind of impacting that a little bit. But at the same time, everyone's still riding their bike more than ever right now. So we'll see what this means in the long term.
Yeah. Do you guys have some full-time paid trail builders like we do down here, or?
We do. We have a team of 4 trail crew that are seasonal, because obviously during the winter it's white everywhere here. But yeah, we've got our trail end of April till October, but this year funds have been cut quite drastically to Walker. One of our funding structures is shriveled up enormously, so we're looking at a substantially reduced maintenance budget than usual. So trying to get smart on how we can expand that, because although we haven't got as many tourists coming into town at the moment, there are still an enormous amount of people riding their bikes on the trails a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we come from North Van and Vancouver to ride in Whistler, so yeah, maybe time to consider purchasing a Walker Trail membership.
Definitely, I've got trail memberships for all the way up the valley. Actually, that reminds me, I need to update my NSMBA one. But yeah,
there you go.
Buy a trail membership, everybody, if anyone's listening to this.
Hopefully they are. I had a couple other questions. What's your favorite recent bike innovation?
Oh, how recent are we talking?
As recent as you want it to be. Just your favorite thing.
Oh goodness, I'm going to say something, and then I'll probably like a couple hours time, I'll be like, "You idiot! That's definitely not as cool as this thing here," because I'm probably forgetting. Some of it's just stuff we overlook. I really like. It's really simple to say things like dropper posts. True. I really like how stable it is to set up tubeless on bikes now as well. Honestly, I don't think enough credit goes to product designers and product managers throughout the whole industry, and I'm not just saying Santa Cruz, but everyone. Like the amount of brain power and sweat equity that goes into just like refining things minutely is fantastic, and it really does benefit. I'm looking at bikes now, trying to remember if there's some really good stuff. One by. We 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago, we were all, it was like 12, 13 years ago, we were all one by on our own bikes, like trying to like bodge chain guides, putting them onto bikes before ISCG, like trying to find ways of having it, and just running the smallest middle ring we could, and setting up and being like, cool, we've got 9, what was it? Would it be 9 speed back then, or 8 speed, or 10 speed? Oh, goodness. Anyway, like, yeah, running what we could and just being like, sweet, this is it. We finally like don't have to worry about a front derailleur, because front derailleurs are the dumbest thing ever.
Oh, they suck.
And I'm sure if you're into road biking and you want that spread of gears, great. But if you are riding your bike dynamically off-road, front derailleurs are awful. So the best innovation is the fact that front derailleurs have gone, because not only is it like improve the experience on the trail, but the stuff that it's allowed engineers and designers for frames and other components to do is incredible. Tire clearances, frame design. I mean, look, on the Santa Cruz, the lower link VPP would be impossible if we still had to like stick to this front derailleur.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, there's designs, the lower link VPP on Santa Cruz is something that they wanted to do a long time ago. And there's old pictures of old mules and everything, but it was just like, where the front derailleur, like where are you gonna put the front derailleur? You're gonna attach it to the shock shaft, like it just would have never worked. So thank God that they've gone. Yeah.
It's crazy how long it took as well. It took a long time, like maybe only the last 2-3 years where everyone finally went, okay, no more.
I was thinking about the Hammerschmidt the other day. The Hammerschmidt was a fantastic, like,
I've always wanted to try one of those.
Way of looking at the problem, because that's what the problem that they were trying to solve. You know, they were trying to solve this problem of front derailleurs and what it meant for chain alignment and chain tension and chain retention and everything. And that's the solution they came up with. But then it was like, now we've introduced all these other things that aren't so great. And then, you know, that was like an iteration to get us to the one by drivetrain that we're on now. So yeah, I love it. The scope of history when you look back at it and how they've iterated to get to where we are, it's great.
I live with a bunch of housemates that have come into mountain biking within the last kind of maybe 3-4 years, and I sometimes have to explain to them like just how lucky they are that bikes are so great. Like I was trying to explain Hammerschmidt to them the other week, and then I was like talking about how I used to like do those sketchy one by conversions on my bike like 8 years ago. And I remember like routinely getting out the Dremel to cut bits off of cranks so they cleared a chain guide, and then the chain guide not actually working, and then having to like take your cranks off in the middle of the trail to get the chain unstuck from the chain guide.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that. Oh, and you and so sweet the chain guide up with enough spaces that you'd bodge together, and then you'd start your ride and it would go wrong, and you'd be like on the side of the trail pulling chain guides apart and respacering them and losing. Oh god, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, just even explaining to someone about gears now, being like, oh yeah, so we used to have two of these shifters, one on the left, one on the right, and the big paddle would make the gears go to the easier one, but on this one, the big paddle would make things go to the harder gear. Like, so you have to think opposite. Like, it's so insane. Like, it's so insane. So, yeah. But yeah,
we're pretty lucky. What is your least favorite innovation or bike trend? Have you got one?
I'm not a huge fan of everyone like carrying pumps and tubes and tools all over their bike. I really think like what Specialized did with SWAT system is really cool. Like burying that stuff away so it's always there, and you can just leave your ride and know that at least the bare essentials there. But I hate when I see pumps sellotaped and strapped to bottle cages and tubes strapped everywhere and tools, kind of like tool wraps here and there. Like, oh, like it feels like putting a lot of weight and a lot of clunky, noisy, rattly stuff on the bike. And also just like, even just the idea of like going on a muddy ride and all of a sudden your pump is covered in muck and mud. I just like can't be. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The only thing I'll put on my bike is a bottle.
Yeah. Thank God for bottle cages.
Yeah. I think bike designers have gone to like so much trouble to make bikes like cleaner and sleeker looking than ever. And then you just cover them in like tube straps and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
It's like seeing like there's a Mazda CX-5 or something driving around here. The guys are, it's a nice family SUV, urban utility kind of vehicle, but it's got a tent topper. It's got an awning. It's got a North Shore bike rack with water and fuel canisters on it. It's got a light bar. And I was just like, oh, if only the designers could see that vehicle. Like you've kind of just thrown everything at it. And I feel like that is the same with bikes, very beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, but also like perform orientated bikes that are, and just at least strap everything on. Just doesn't seem quite. So much rather ride with a backpack or with a swap bib.
Yeah, I'll ride with a hip pack these days. I used to say I never would, but they're just too useful to not use it because they're uncool.
Yeah. What about you? What's your least favorite innovation?
Least favorite innovation. I don't have too many things that I'm. That's probably not true. I have a lot of things that I don't like. Trying to come up with one off the top of my head there. I see a lot of annoying things on a lot of different bikes because I'm a mechanic, and probably my least favorite one actually is internal cable routing, but with a caveat that it's internal cable routing where they've gone to zero effort to actually make it useful or easy to use. So like, making a nice carbon frame, but not actually having like guided tubes. There's like certain brands that instead of doing that, they just shove like a giant pipe cleaner inside of the frame to stop them rattling. Nightmare.
I won't say what bike it was, but before I started working at Santa Cruz, one of the last non-Santa Cruz bikes I purchased and owned, I bought it. I was getting rave reviews, fantastic looking bike, and I got it, and same thing. They had a hole near the head tube and a hole near the exit, and nothing in between. And the cables would rattle around in the frame, and that just drove me mental. So, then I was told, I contacted the company, and they were like, wrap some foam around it. So I said, okay, cool. So wrap some foam around it, still made a racket, and then they're like, oh, okay, so spray some foam inside your frame. And at that point, I got rid of the bike. I was like, this bike has problems that you're asking me to bodge to fix.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not how it works. Like, I don't expect this. I want a product that's finished correctly and is exceptional, and that it isn't creating more problems than it's solving. So that's what good product is, when all these things are solved for you and you don't even have to think about them. So
yeah, I had that experience recently. Actually, I was asked to convert a bike from mechanical to Di2. It was a road bike, and I won't mention the brand, but it's quite a high-end bike, like a high-end Italian brand. And I had to get hold of the brand to source. You know how the battery will usually sit inside the C-tube, and this bike came with a stock Di2 build. So I was like, they must have the hardware for this. And I reached out to them, and they were like, yeah, we just like use some spray foam. So if you can just like cut some foam up or whatever and do that. And I was like, are you serious? Like, you don't actually have a thing that you can sell me to make this work like properly?
Yeah. Unfinished. So yeah, you must get to see quite a lot of that being mechanic bay. There's one thing now working for Santa Cruz, I don't get to ride many other different types of bikes anymore, which I miss. Like, I really like knowing what everybody's bike is riding like and what they're doing. I don't even get to see them. So
yeah,
you must see the full gamut.
I see a lot of them. Yeah, there aren't many bad bikes out there these days, but there are a lot of companies that kind of aspire to do really cool things and just kind of fall short of the mark because either they weren't thinking of how it was going to get used or how it was going to get fixed once it's broken or whatever,
or just constraints of certain different kinds in the background that we don't get to see. But yeah, product should be finished really when it gets to a customer, and their experience should not be hampered by unfinished design.
And I know that we're a big Santa Cruz dealer. I know I've got to say this, but I don't really have to say it. But that's what I love about Santa Cruz. Like, I love working on them. Like, they're just so easy to work on. Everything's just done right,
Yeah. Same thing. Like, of course, I'm absolutely biased because I work for them, but I didn't, like I said earlier on, I was not looking for a job in the industry in any way. But there was one bicycle company, because of the product and the company and what they stood for, that I was fully, they were the benchmark for everything else. And so it's really why it's much easier for me to go to work every morning and every night and every day because I actually believe in the product that we build. It's done the right way. I'm not sure if I am anyone that knows my writing and stuff in the past. I'm quite highly opinionated about stuff like that, and I could not do it for a company whose product I couldn't ride. It was So
I'm the same. Working in a bike shop, you have to drink the Kool-Aid to a certain extent, and I couldn't work in a shop that sold brands that I didn't believe in.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I think we've been going for long enough here.
Cool.
Thanks for talking, Seb.
Thanks for having me. It was a good chat.
Yeah.
Another fellow Englishman. We'll have to catch up for a ride soon.
Yeah,
when we're allowed to gather.
Exactly. That'd be awesome. All right, thanks. Take care. Thanks for listening to episode 3 of the Steed Cycles podcast. If you haven't already, check out the other episodes on Spotify or iTunes. You can also find more content on our YouTube channel and Instagram. Don't forget to follow us if you like what you see.